Hello students, welcome back to this channel. This is Dr. Chetna Kumawat and today we will discuss forms or kinds of dividend. Dividend may be paid in different forms. When we talk about types of security, then we have two categories. One is preference dividend and second one is equity dividend. If we talk about timings of dividend, then again we have two categories. One is interim dividend and another one is regular dividend. And if we talk about medium of payment, then we have three categories. One, cash dividend, two, stock dividend, and third is scrip or bond dividend. A brief description of each of these dividends is made here in this lecture. Preference dividend. Preference dividend is paid on preference shares. It is paid at the fixed rate which is mentioned at the time of issue of preference shares. This dividend is paid before the payment of equity dividend. The decision to pay or not to pay preference dividend is taken by the board of directors, but the board of directors have no freedom of choice to reduce the rate of preference dividend. Equity dividend. Equity dividend is paid on equity shares at the rate recommended by the board of directors and approved by the shareholders in annual general meeting. The board of directors have freedom of choice with regard to payment or non-payment of dividend, the rate of dividend and the medium of dividend, that is cash dividend or non-cash dividend. Because of the maximum managerial freedom available in the case of equity dividend, most of the discussions on dividend policy relates to equity dividend. Interim dividend. Interim dividend is the dividend paid by the board of directors at any time between two annual general meetings of the company, if the articles of association of the company so permits. It is generally declared and paid when the company has earned huge profits or abnormal profits during the year and the directors wish to distribute these profits to the shareholders. No interim dividend can be declared and paid unless description for the full year has already been provided. It is thus an extra dividend paid in cash during the year requiring no approval of the annual general meeting. The directors should be very careful and vigilant in declaring interim dividend. If the profits as disclosed by profit and loss account at the end of the year falls short, then dividend paid, the director would be held responsible for it. Cash dividend. This is the most popular dividend which is distributed to the shareholders in cash out of the earnings of the business or short-term loans taken from the bank. Generally, shareholders are interested in cash dividend. The payment of dividend in cash indicates cash outflows from the firm to the shareholders. Hence, it necessitates availability of sufficient funds with the firm and a good liquidity position. So, while deciding to pay dividend in cash and its quantum, the management should take into consideration the firm's cash needs and working capital needs, debt repayment obligations, long-term and short-term capital needs, availability and cost of debt and equity capital, the amount and stability of earnings. Payment of dividend in cash is most desirable when the firm cannot use surplus earnings in profitable projects due to non-availability of favorable investment opportunities. The advantage of cash dividend is that it builds confidence in investors' mind about company, increases the credit rating of the firm, and helps in maintaining price levels of shares. Scrip or bond dividend. Scrip dividend is the dividend paid by a company to its shareholders in the form of scrips, that is, shares and debentures of another company's or a promissory note. This form of dividend is used by a company when it faces a temporary financial crisis in spite of high earnings. Scrip and bond dividend differ only in respect of time period. In case of scrip dividend, the time period is short term, whereas in bond dividend it is long term. Such dividends are not in practice in India after the Companies Amendments Act 1960. According to Section 205, subsection 3 of the Companies Act, dividend must be paid in cash except when the company decides to capitalize profits or reserves by issuing fully paid up bonus shares or making partly paid up shares into fully paid up. Thus, scrip or bond dividend or property dividend cannot be paid and it is no longer legal in India. Stock dividend or bonus shares. Sometimes a company cannot pay dividend in cash due to shortage of liquid funds in spite of large amount of reserve and surplus. Under such circumstances, the company issues new shares to the existing shareholders in lieu of paying dividend in cash. Such shares are known as stock dividend or bonus shares. Thus, stock dividend or bonus shares represent a distribution of share in lieu of or in addition to cash dividend to the existing shareholders as per the guidelines issued by the central government. The issue of bonus shares is the conversion of profits into capital. Therefore, it is also called capitalization of profits. This capitalization of profits may take two forms: making the partly paid up shares fully paid up without asking for cash from the shareholders, or issuing or allotting fully paid up shares to the existing shareholders in a definite proportion free of cost. Now let's understand effect of issue of bonus shares. The issue of bonus shares results in an increase in number of shares and hence increases the paid up capital of the company without involving any monetary transaction. Such shares are issued to all the existing shareholders in proportion to their holdings of share capital of the company. Thus, bonus shares do not alter the proportional ownership of the company as far as the existing shareholders are concerned. In other words, the owner's equity or net worth remains unaltered. Since the number of shares increases as a result of bonus shares, the book value and the earnings per share of company will decrease, while the market price per share would receive a compensatory increase in the number of shares held. Advantages of bonus shares. Issue of bonus shares is advantageous to both the company and shareholders in the following way. Conversion of cash, or it is conservation of cash. Issue of bonus shares permits the company to announce dividend without using cash and retain earnings for use in profitable investment projects or for further expansion and growth. By issuing bonus shares, on one side the company satisfies the shareholders and on other side retains cash to meet its financial requirements, maintaining a reasonable level of EPS. Higher earning per share may raise many problems for the company from employees and customer side as it indicates profitability. Issue of bonus shares results in an increase in the number of equity shares and decline in earnings per share. It thus helps in maintaining a reasonable level of EPS. It removes the impression of profiteering on the part of company. Increasing the share capital base. Issue of bonus shares reduces the market price per share and attracts more investors. It increases the base of share capital and hence marketability of companies' shares. By keeping the market price of shares within the reach of equity investors, it gives fillip to trading equity. Economical. The cost of issue of bonus shares is the minimum as no brokerage, underwriting commission or issue expenses have to be incurred. Only existing shareholders are allotted bonus shares in proportion to their present holdings. Advantages to shareholders. Issue of bonus shares is beneficial to the shareholders in the following way. Number 1. Tax benefits. A company has to pay corporate dividend tax on the income, but distributed as cash dividend in issue of bonus shares, no cash is received by the shareholders and it is not taxable as income. It results in capital appreciation. The shareholder can enjoy capital gains by selling a few shares of his holding. Number 2. Increased future dividend. Issue of bonus shares indicates that a company has bright future prospects and investors can hope for higher dividends in future due to their increased holding. Number 3. Psychological value. Issue of bonus shares has a psychological value as the market views it very favorably and positively. Besides raising the image of the company in the market, it becomes easier for the company to raise required funds. The demand of its shares may rise and hence the market price may rise instead of declining. Guidelines for issuing bonus shares. A company cannot issue bonus shares at will. As per guidelines issued by SEBI, which is Securities and Exchange Board of India, a company has to satisfy certain conditions and follow certain guidelines in deciding a bonus issue. So this is it for today's lecture. Thank you so much for your patience and learning.